Welcome to our latest video, Mastering Lease Options. If you've been searching for a creative and flexible real estate strategy, then you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Goff. Lease options are a powerful tool that can open doors to incredible real estate opportunities, but it's essential that you know how to use them correctly. In this video, we'll break down the concept of lease options, explore how they work, and give you some practical tips so you know how to use them and maximize your profits. Whether you're a seasoned investor or starting out, this video is packed with invaluable insights. It's going to help you elevate your real estate game. So buckle up, grab a notepad, and let's dive into the world of lease options. Taking control without taking title. So a lease option is a lease agreement combined with a purchase agreement. Through a lease option agreement, a buyer leases a property usually 1 to 3 years and then has the right or option to purchase that property on or before the end of that agreement. So a lease option, a lease purchase, or rent to own, they are all essentially the same thing. We simply have a lease agreement as though you're renting it. But we also combine a purchase agreement, giving them the option to purchase that within the duration or time frame of that lease agreement. We put them both together. We call them a lease option agreement. Very simple. The types of properties that you can use this strategy with are single family, condos, mobile homes, townhomes, multifamily, all commercial land, businesses, bulk properties, just about any piece of real estate you can work with a lease option. Now, step one is lead generation. This is about finding deals. I always say spend 90% of your time finding the deal. So let's talk about some ways that we could do this, or what I would say the most common ways. Number one, yes, you could drive neighborhoods and looking for sale by owners or for rent. Now, I want my for rent properties to be by owner. I don't want them listed through a realtor, listed through some management company, because number one, you have to explain exactly what that is through the realtor, and then the realtor has to explain that to the homeowner. And at the end of the day, you have too many people trying to profit from this. Now, generally, these neighborhoods are going to be nice neighborhoods that you're going to do lease option deals. These are not distressed properties that need work. These are properties that somebody could actually move in and start renting. Number two is skip tracing. So we could find owners, find properties, and do a skip trace to find the contact owner info. We could then give them a call and see if they would be open to selling based on a lease option. We're going to talk a little bit more about this coming up. Next is simple online marketing. Maybe you have a website. You could do Google AdWords. You could jump into Facebook advertising, even TikTok advertising. There are numerous online marketing places out there that you could just start promoting exactly what you're looking to buy and buying it on a lease option. Social media. Local Facebook groups are a great way to connect with people that are in the area. Maybe somebody is having a hard time selling their home, but they don't want to just rent it. A lease option may fit perfect for this situation. You just got to get the message out there. Networking, investment clubs. Again, networking with other people. Sometimes you meet somebody and it's like, hey, my uncle's friend is having a problem selling the house, and I think this might be something he would be interested in. Great. Can you pass along my information? Next are real estate agents. But like I said before, again, we don't necessarily work a lot of lease options with agents, but we absolutely can. Direct mail. Direct mail is a great way to send bulk advertising out to numerous potential leads to see if the owner might be open to selling the property on a lease option. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. And of course, REIPro, where we could find those off-market properties. So why don't we just jump in real quick and let's start finding some deals. All right, so now that we're in REIPro, I'm in the Lead Pros section. Very first thing you want to do is enter a location. I'm going to type in Round Rock, Texas. Now, you could go in and actually search for multiple different types of leads, and you can stack this list and so forth. But we actually have a shortcut. If you go search by strategy, scroll down, click that lease option, you could just hit search. We've already set some filter criteria of what would be the ideal property, especially when we're searching in bulk, that you'd be looking for a lease option. Now, one thing that I would recommend that you do is click the filter button here and really fine tune this particular list. Now, I may only want to search for single family homes, but like I said before, this works for any kind of property. Next, I'm going to scroll down to the estimated value. So what we did is we take about the average price range and up. So that middle price range of every market and even above that, those are ideal numbers for properties that you're looking for. So whatever that average median price is. Now you can obviously adjust this as you see fit. I did put a minimum potential equity of 20%, but you can pay up to full price. Now, of course, we do make more money when you can get that a little bit more equity, a little bit better deal. So I like to put in 20% here. Now, as I scroll down, you can set the bedrooms, baths, and all that good stuff. I'm just here to tell you, most of the homes that are going to fit in that medium and above price range, it's a desirable area. So I'm not as picky with just selecting bedrooms and baths. You can also adjust the square footage, the lot size, year built, and the last sold date. You know, how many years have they actually owned this property? I'm just going to leave it blank here. Now, the owners, I do want to go individual owned. I want to try to remove all the company owned properties because it can be very difficult to actually get a hold of the person that can make a decision. Now, do they live in state or not? When I scroll back up here, absentee owners is probably that number one choice. This could be a tired landlord, somebody financial distress. They need to sell the property. They need somebody in the property. Maybe they had tenants on the property and they just kicked them out and they're tired landlords, right? So absentee owners are a really good lead source to target market a lease option deal. Once I set those filters, just going to hit the apply button. And now that I have my list of leads, the very first thing that I could do now, if that's too many leads for you, you could narrow those filters down just to get to a number that may be more manageable for you to send direct mail out. I'm going to go up to the action button here. I am going to select all of those 1,542 leads. I'm going to add this to a marketing campaign. I'm going to go up here and type the name of the campaign. Next, I'm going to select the campaign type and actually set it to a lease option. If you already have a campaign already set, you can add those leads to the existing campaign. I'm going to select and add those leads. I'm now going to go immediately over to my marketing tab. And right here, you're going to see that I have this Round Rock lease option. You have options here. Now, I could export this list and do something other than what I'm going to tell you. Number one, order postcards. Anytime we have high volume, I like sending postcards. It's one of the more affordable ways to hit as many people as possible. You could print letters from the system. We could clean the list and maybe export that list. You can also do bulk skip tracing if you want to just sit there and start making phone calls. Totally up to you on how you want to market this person. But as an example, you could order postcards and we have so many different templates. We even have lease option templates that cater just to this particular strategy. But when you send that direct mail, they may not call you. So think about, do you have a website? Do you have a landing page that talks about what you do? That's a great way to have the owners go to your website, fill out a form, and now you're going to get contacted. Step 2 is contacting the owner. Look, at the end of the day, you have to speak to somebody. I'd prefer to speak to the owner because I want to talk to somebody that can actually make a decision. I need to build that trust. I need to educate people on what this is, because if you think about it, if everybody knew exactly how to do a lease option, why aren't they doing it? It's because they don't understand how to connect the dots. This is where you come in. I'm going to give you some reasons on why sellers would even agree to this. Number one, they could receive full price for the home. One of the best things about a lease option is you don't necessarily have to make money on the sales price. We make money on what's called the terms. How much down, how much a month, and how long can we do this for? Next, the seller could receive a non-refundable down payment, unlike a security deposit, which would be refundable if the tenant took care of the property. This is theirs to keep, and to make a note, this non-refundable down payment is credited towards the purchase price only if the buyer buys. You're not going to have any management headaches because the quality of tenant is actually looking to buy. So in the buyer's mind, they're buying it in the future. They treat the home as if it is their home because their goal is to buy the home. No or little maintenance cost. One thing we put in our agreements is that the tenant buyer is responsible for up to $500 per occurrence in maintenance costs and repairs. This will take care of all the small things that go wrong with the property. Now, keep in mind, the owner still owns the property. They still are required to have insurance. So if anything major went wrong, the buyer would be responsible for the first $500. They could receive positive cash flow just as much as if they were renting the property. They retain title to the home because they still own the home. They build equity every month, and maybe something a lot of people aren't thinking about, especially in today's market, it may be their only option. I want you to think about, if interest rates are high, buyers are not buying. If they're not buying, they're not looking at properties. Owners of the properties have to sell because they're through a situation that's forcing them to sell. And if they can't sell, what would a normal person do? They would rent the property out. Well, that's exactly what we're doing here. They get the best of both worlds. Let me give you some tips. Tip number one is never lead with a lease option. Number one, I made this mistake when I got started. I would cut out all the for rent properties out of the Washington Post that, hey, they're open to renting the property. So in my mind, I said, hey, they're willing to accept a monthly payment. Now it's just a matter of, do they want to sell? And as soon as they answered, I would just reel off lease option, lease option. Here's the benefit of lease option. Here's another benefit of lease option. And that is the worst thing that you can do. I want you to lead off as, hey, look, I'm just looking to buy a property. I want you to keep it as simple as that. As you build trust, as you talk to the owner, slowly go into the lease option. I want you to understand their situation. What's causing them they have to do something with the house, either sell it or rent it, whatever it may be. What's the situation? And most importantly, what do they need out of the home? I think this is one of the biggest points that I could make, because typical investors, what do? They tell you what they can pay for it. How many investors actually go to the homeowner and say, what do you need from this home? If I can get to those numbers, would you consider doing a lease option? You'd be surprised of just the reaction of the owner and how that whole conversation can change. Don't sell them a lease option, just to educate them. That's where I messed up in the beginning. Here, I'm just trying to sell somebody oh my gosh, you'd be crazy not to do this. This is such a great thing that you should do with your home. You have to educate people. The more that you educate people on what it is that you're doing, they understand you. They build that confidence in you. They build that trust in you. And at the end of the day, they start to understand, okay, that totally makes sense. I absolutely want to do it. Obviously, follow the phone scripts in REIPro. We have already the phone scripts that you need located in executable step number 2 under any saved property. You're going to go through these phone scripts, but you're not going to be like reading them off like bullet points. I want you to turn it into a conversation. So be sure to follow those scripts because we already have all the questions you need to ask. Step number 3 is property inspection. So once you speak to the owner and it sounds like a potential deal, that's the time we need to go look at the property. I want to give you some tips though, and maybe some you haven't thought of. Number 1 is, when you drive up to the property, I just want you to get out and understand your surroundings. Do you hear a train in the background? Do you see kids playing down the street? What do you feel? Is it more of a homeowner area? Is it more of a rental area? Is it a desirable area? Understanding your surroundings is only going to help you identify, can I even find a buyer that would want to live here? Obviously, build trust with the owner. The best way to do this is just keep asking the owner questions. But if you find the owner wanting to talk to you, then just sit back and listen. Obviously, take pictures. Super duper easy today. Pull out your phone and start taking pictures of the property. You're not going to remember every little detail about the property. And especially when you're just getting started, you're probably fumbling around and forgetting to ask certain questions that you're really not paying attention to this. But go into the areas, obviously get a good front picture. Anything wrong that you see, be sure to take those pictures. We'll be able to use those in our negotiation, especially when we're calculating the cost of repairs. Talk about the benefits. Now that you've talked to the owner, now that they've met you in person, it's really time to get into the benefits of lease options. Just to name a few, the non-refundable down payment, a better quality tenant, someone that's actually looking to buy a property and not just rent a property. There could be some tax benefits too for the owner. But what I want you to do is get into REIPro, go to our business center, and there's a marketing form. It's called Lease Option Special Report. And in that particular report, we talk about what a lease option is for the owner and all of the benefits of a lease option. And that's going to help them understand a little bit more about what it is you're trying to do. And obviously, follow the inspection sheet in REIPro. You can print a blank inspection sheet and take it with you, or just simply pull up your cell phone, log into REIPro, and follow step number 3. Now, like I said, generally speaking, we're working with properties that are in good condition. I'm not talking about properties that just need updating. If it's livable, everything is in working order, that's my priority with the lease option. Sure, you're going to find things, and that's great, but it's only going to help you in negotiation with price, monthly payment, and down payment. So be sure to log everything, take pictures of everything. Now that you've inspected the property, it's time to make an offer. This is probably one of the most important steps after finding the deal. Let me give you some tips. Obviously, we need to run comparable sales, or we abbreviate it comps. We need to understand what is the after repaired value of this property. And we can do this right in REIPro, which I'm going to show you. Understand the owner priority. And what I mean by that is, what is their pet peeve? Are they more focused on the sales price, or maybe they're more focused on the down payment, or is it the monthly payment, or could it be the term of it? Generally speaking, most owners have this pet peeve of saying, no, I have to get this price. Somebody could say, no, yeah, but if I do that, I want this much down. You have to figure out and determine, just by simply talking to them, what's the most important thing to them? Now, if they give you this ridiculous sales price, I want $100,000 down, ridiculous monthly, and we'll only do it for 30 days. Look, they're not motivated. It's not a deal. Don't waste your time. Because the hardest thing to do in this business is try to convince somebody they should listen to you. Once somebody says, nope, that's what I'm doing, it's very difficult to convince them. I would probably follow up in 30 days to see if they change their mind, because there's only one thing that changes people's minds: time. People's circumstances change in time. And of course, understand your exit strategy. If you did a lease option on this property, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to lease option it back out? Now, let me ask you, could you rent it? Absolutely. Could you sell the property? Absolutely. You have the option to buy it. You could assign that interest over to somebody else. Let me ask you this. Could you seller finance it? Nope, you can't do that because you don't own it. You can't give somebody the deed if you don't have it already. And of course, we're going to create the offer in REIPro. We make it as simple as possible for you. So we're actually going to jump into REIPro and let's go make a lease option offer. Now it's time to make a lease option offer. So I'm going to pull the property back up here. I'm going to scroll down to executable step number 4. Now, as you can see, you have step 1, 2, 3. They're color coded. It's because I always mark these complete. This way, if I have to come back into the property at a later date, I know exactly where I left off and what I need to be doing. So the very first thing that we talked about was running comparable sales. Now, I already did this just to speed up the process, but you really want to fine tune what is the value of this property by seeing what has actually sold, not what is pending, not what is for sale, but what has actually sold. I'm then going to use these comparables to get to my after repaired value, which we've already done. I'm now going to go over to where it says lease option, and this is where we get to create that offer. Now, I've carried the after repaired value over at $525. Now, my offer price is always going to be less than that. And of course, there are little things that need to be fixed in this property. Not every home is going to just be perfect. You could always find something. Plus, if you also look at if they use the real estate agent, there's going to be a big commission on that as well. And especially in a buyer's market in most areas, you may not even get close to that after repaired value. So I think this is a good fair price that the offer that we're going to offer to the owner. Now, my down payment, I'm going to offer $5,000. And here's just a quick tip on how do I even calculate this number. The first thing that I do is I look at the rent value. So $2613. If the owner couldn't sell and they decide to rent, they would generally get a $2,600 or $2,700 security deposit. which would be refundable if the tenant took care of the house. But we're putting in a lease option buyer. So if I offer $5,000 down that's non-refundable, that's already better than a $2,700 security deposit. Now, keep in mind, it is applied to the purchase price when all of this goes down to closing in the future. I'm going to offer just a little bit less on the monthly payment because guess what? I need to cash flow on this property. I know it can rent for $2,600, $2,700. I'm going to offer $200 to $300 less. Also keep in mind, remember, I'm giving them more as a down payment versus a security deposit. So they are making that money. For those that are thinking, yeah, but why would the owner not rent it out for $2,600? Look, I'm the one doing all the work. I also have to get paid just as much as a management company would get paid if they oversaw a property that is a rental. Next is the monthly credits. I'm going to offer $200 to the owner, meaning that I'm going to receive $200 a month for on-time payments that would be credited to the purchase price when we go to buy. But here's the thing. That $200 credit doesn't apply if I make late payments. So that encourages us to make on-time payments, as well as the seller loves that. Hey, look, I want on-time payments. We're going to offer a 24-month term instead of a 12. You could also offer a 36. You may be surprised. Owners may want a longer term, especially nowadays. I'm going to put in my repair threshold of $500, which is simply saying that I'm going to take care of the maintenance costs and repairs per occurrence up to $500. That's my lease option offer. I can now email this offer to the seller. I can view and print this offer. Now, over time, the total paid to the seller if they had zero debt on the property, which in this case, the owner actually owns it free and clear. They're not making the $495 that I offered. They're actually making a lot more with the down payment and cash flow. Now, the next thing that you need to do, remember we talk about understand your exit strategy. All you have to do is simply come up here and I want you to click on Deal Pro. So step one is to choose how are you buying the property? Well, we're doing a lease option, and then how are you selling it? We're going to lease option it right back out. So on the left-hand side, all I've done is put my offer. This is what they accepted for the property or hoping to accept for the property. I'm then going to fill out what I feel the buyer can pay for this property. Now I'm going to ask $525 because the house is already worth $525. But keep in mind, this is going to be a future price. Some investors may actually increase this number a little. I'm going to ask for $15,000 down. Remember, I talked about 3 to 5% down. This is actually cheaper than if they went to a bank. I'm going to ask for $2,700 a month monthly payment, and I'm willing to give $100 a month credit. We're only going to do this for 12 months. And if I go through the analysis, I can see my net profit down here at the bottom. So now let's go make the offer. Now, once we make this offer, I want you to go up to step number 4 and check that complete. Step 5, contract with seller. Now that the offer has been accepted, it's time to put it under contract. Let me give you some tips. Number 1, obviously a lease option contract. REIPro already provides a lease option contract, and due to the duration of that particular training, we have a video training in REIPro just for this one contract. So I'd encourage you to watch that video and really understand how to fill it out. You always want to give yourself a 30 to 60 day start date, or what we call in the contract a commencement date. When you sign this agreement with the seller, it may not start for 30 days. And I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of times that's actually more beneficial for the seller, but it definitely gives you more time to find that buyer to get into the property before you actually have to start paying the seller. Now, if you can't get somebody within that 30 days or whenever that commencement date is, you either need to talk to the seller to see if they will extend that, or you need to take that money out of your pocket and do what you said you were going to do. And that's to actually do the deal. Disclosures. In our lease option contract, we have all the disclosures that you need. Obviously, you want to make 2 copies, one for you and one for the owner. You need to make arrangements to show the property, right? So at this point, the owner already knows that I'm not personally moving into the property and that we work with people that are looking for opportunities like this. So we'll need to show the property. Try to get a key if you can. Now, if the property owners are still living in the property, we're going to have to coordinate that around their schedule. Step 6, protect your interests. Now that you have this property under contract, the last thing you want to do is have some other investor go around your back and sign something different with the owner. So what you're going to do is file an affidavit with the county. So anytime an investor secures a contract with the seller, they stand a remote chance that the seller may find another buyer who will give them a better price. An affidavit clouds the title and protects the investor so the seller cannot sell the property to someone else without passing a clouded title. In this case, you're just swearing to the notary that you do indeed have a signed contract with the seller, and you don't even need the seller to sign it. We have this affidavit inside of REIPro under Step 6 and a training video on how to fill it out. Now it's time to market for buyers. Now, don't get me wrong, you should always be marketing for buyers and building your buyers list. Just a couple of things that I do want to talk about is create marketing ad and a flyer. I love if I have the opportunity to put a sign in a flyer box. You get so many people that drive the areas that they want to live in. Now that they see this particular sign, you might get a lot of attention from just marketing it that way. Next, you could obviously put it on Zillow, Craigslist. I also like local Facebook groups. Follow our buyer questionnaire when potential buyers call. We have a list of questions in REIPro that you can ask and save that buyer to the system. So when that next property comes under contract, you can send them all the information about it. And one thing to note, under our Step 7, you can actually use our ad writer to help you create that marketing ad, and we can also create a flyer. You also have the ability to email all of the buyers you have saved in REIPro this information. Step 8 is the contract with the new buyer now. So now you have a contract with the seller to do a lease option. Now you need to print up a new contract under different terms with the new buyer. Just a couple of tips here. Obviously, you're going to use a lease option contract. I like to generally get 3 to 5% down from the new buyer. Now, with the seller, I want to go as low as possible. I only go a 12-month term with the new buyer, no matter if I've got 3 years or 2 years with the seller. Because if my buyer can't buy after end of 12 months, I could simply go another 12 months with them. I can extend that with them. I can actually find a new buyer and we'll do this process all over again for the next 12 months. Obviously, do a rental app, a credit check. We need to really understand, are they even in a position to actually get qualified in the next 12 months? One thing I always recommend to people is to work with a mortgage broker. Send your buyer to the mortgage broker and let the mortgage broker paint a roadmap of what they need to do to get in a position to buy this home. Step 9 is closing. Just some tips here. Obviously, you want to clean the property if need be before the buyer actually moves in. Now, originally, we're doing a kitchen table closing, right? Because the buyer's not going to the bank and cashing everyone out at this particular time. So when we sign the agreement with the seller, we're at their kitchen table signing that agreement as the buyer. And when I have my new buyer, I'm at the kitchen table with my new buyer selling it as the seller. Even though I'm not the seller, I just have the option to assign. So we're not actually going to the closing table until the buyer is in a position to buy, which has to happen within that 12 months. Never take a check. Take a cashier's check for the down payment. Next thing you know, they move in, you go to deposit the check, and guess what? It bounced, right? So either cash or a cashier's check, or they could even wire the money into your bank account. At that point is when I would fulfill the option payment with the seller. This is how people do no money down real estate. So think about it. I signed an agreement with the seller, gave me 30 days to find a buyer. I put my buyer in, they put down X dollar amount plus first month's rent. I then take a portion of whatever I agreed with the seller and then pay them at that particular time. Obviously, stay in contact with the buyer for financing. We want to make sure that they don't wait till the last minute, right? So each month, the buyer's paying you, you're paying the seller. We're just going to keep doing this until the buyer actually can get the financing to eventually close everybody out. And obviously the best day is payday, right? So every time you sit down at the kitchen table with a new buyer, that's payday. Each month with this new buyer, that's a payday. And when the buyer buys the property, guess what? That's another payday. You get paid 3 different ways with a lease option. I didn't even use my money. I don't even own the property, nor did I even move into it. So just a quick example, just to recap. We have the terms with the seller at $495, $5,000 down, which will get credited, $2,400 a month, monthly credit of $200. We're going to do that for 24 months. Now, keep in mind, we could buy day 1 or we could buy at the end of 24 months. The terms with the new buyer was selling it at $525 with a $15,000 down payment, a monthly rent of $2,700, $100 credit for 12 months. Our profit breakdown is pretty simple. We made $10,000 the day we signed this. We're going to make $3,600 in cash flow for the entire 12 months. And when the buyer buys, we're also going to make another $21,200. Now, just keep in mind, there will be some closing cost on your side, which I didn't throw in there because it's going to be different for everyone. That brings us to a profit of almost $35,000. You just think you only need to do 1 a month to do really well. So get out there and start working this strategy. This is a home run strategy for so many people, so many owners that can't sell their property right now, so many investors that just aren't utilizing this strategy. It's that extra tool in the toolbox, and you have so many ways that you can profit from it, and you're really not even spending any money. So jump into REIPro, where we're going to walk you through this entire process from start to finish. And if you learned something on this, please give me a thumbs up. It's going to help us keep continuing to put out more trainings just like this. We'll see you on the next training video, and happy investing.